What's next for the Rams and the Bengals, their players, and the decisions that their front offices need to make right now? What a whirlwind season for Odell Beckham Jr., guys, from being the best quarterback on the Browns to revitalizing his career in LA until he reportedly tears his ACL in the Super Bowl. The timing could not be worse for him before he hits free agency. Where's a good landing spot for him to continue crushing it in fantasy here, Geoff?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's such. I tweeted about this yesterday. I hate to see players like this. Odell Beckham, everyone was down on him. He's terrible. He's not the same. He went and revitalized his career. He showed that the problem was Cleveland. It wasn't Odell Beckham. And now what's his payout? That he has a long offseason of recovery, probably not going to be ready for the start of the year just because of the nature of the injury. And, you know, his free agent value is just, it's kind of in the tank just because of that. I think this is going to lead to Odell Beckham potentially just going back to the Rams because it makes it very easy for him to just come back. The Rams know they'll be fine. They're not in any rush to add someone. They've got their Super Bowl. Sure, come back for one more year, Odell. And I think that's probably the best situation for Odell Beckham. He can come in, he can raise his value again. He'll probably get a short-term deal. Who knows? The Rams are crazy. They might just trade people and like free up a bunch of space and give them like $80 million too. That's another scenario. I think Odell Beckham, because of this injury, I think there's a way better chance now he goes back to the Rams.
All right, Pearce, where do you think he goes, and where's the best place for him to just continue to move in a positive direction here on the fantasy side?
Oh, well, I don't expect him to move much at all. He's going to the couch. He should stay on the couch. His career's over. His career was already over. I don't get this. He revitalized his career. We're going to look at, I mean, this is incredibly biased. You're picking out a couple games in specific situations and saying, oh, he's back. When you look at a 5-year sample size, I get it. His quarterback wasn't that great, but that's the story for a lot of receivers and many receivers that still put together pretty good numbers with poor quarterback performances. His numbers aren't there. He is a very old 29. He's got a torn ACL. He's not just going to come back immediately. He was already a fringe player in my book. Did he have some good games in the playoffs? Yeah, but they weren't against good teams. Those are not good secondaries. Also, everybody's guarding Cooper Kupp, so he gets tertiary secondary coverage. They also didn't have a running game, so they had to pass the ball to him. I think if you look at his playoff numbers, it's incredibly skewed, and I don't think any general manager is going to be stupid enough to just look at those numbers. They're going to look at the full sample size and say, this guy's toast. He's done. The highlight of his career is getting knocked out by a kicking net.
He should still have a market, though, right? Like, it's not out of the...
No!
You do not...
Who wants him? Damaged goods. Look, he's already got baggage to begin with. Remember, he's a head case to begin with.
But
now he's got injury issues. He's an old 29. You are crazy if you're going to bring him onto your team.
I mean,
I'm an old 29 too, Emerson.
Yes, you are. It's funny. You're a lot like my wife. She's turned 29 the past 8 years. It's kind of crazy how she doesn't age. But Pearce, it seems like he's fine between the ears when you get onto a winning football team. We've seen it like with Jalen Ramsey.
Pierce has talked enough. I disagree completely with this. We watched Odell Beckham get open at will in Cleveland and overthrown, not connecting on deep balls. Look, you can dislike what Odell Beckham does off the field. The clip that his dad put together doesn't lie. That's the truth. That's what was happening in Cleveland. Odell Beckham, to me, looked absolutely fine on the field. He looked great on the Rams, and he clicked there. He gelled with the Super Bowl winning team. I don't think that the problem is Odell Beckham. I get that he rubs some people the wrong way, but no, I think there's still actually a lot of juice left. He's going to rehab, obviously, from another major injury, but this is an elite athlete. We've seen him perform. I think he's going to come back, and I think he'll be a difference maker for someone again.
Julio Jones was an elite athlete. How did that work out for the Titans?
Julio Jones, what is he, like 34, 35? Come on, he's got like 5 years on Beckham.
Pete, you were singing a different song at the beginning of the season. Everybody else was too.
I mean, I think everything will be on the table for OBJ. And you also have to think how crowded that wide receiver room will be if he stays in LA because Robert Woods coming back from his own injury. So will he have to take the injured player discount? He's going to have to wait to sign closer to the season and rather than jump on a new team right away.
You know who's going to get him? It's the Jags.
Oh, hey, you know what? Who wouldn't want to be catching touchdowns from Hall of Fame quarterback Trevor Lawrence? Anywho, Few quarterbacks, guys, in the NFL. Stop that, Matt Cody. Stop pushing that crickets button. Few quarterbacks in the NFL history have been sacked as much as Joe Burrow was this season, guys. A record-tying 7 times in the Super Bowl, bringing his total number of takedowns between the regular season and playoffs to 70. Third most in league history. Offensive line has to be the priority here. Like, what's the best way to improve it? Pearce, are we free agency through the draft? We saw the Chiefs do something similar last year, right? Terrible offensive line, turned it right into one of the best with a couple free agent additions.
Yeah, they kind of twisted their format around too, going to, changing run blockers and pass blockers. But I think the first thing is just get healthy. The Bengals down the stretch had a lot of backups, had different guys playing out of position. So getting healthy is going to be an upgrade right there. And then, you're going to want to go to the free agent market, but everybody every season wants to go to the free agent market and pick up players for the offensive line. Everyone's always constantly trying to improve there. But the Bengals have 2 things going for them. Offensive linemen more than likely want to block for a potential Hall of Fame quarterback. And we saw defensive players sign with the Bengals last season because they wanted to play Joe Burrow. So you got that. And then the bigger key here is the Bengals have a lot of cap space. So they can afford one of these top-tier offensive linemen that can anchor the line. The issue, though, is will Mike Brown spend? He's notorious for being one of the more stingy owners in the league.
Yep.
But you would expect him to invest in protecting Joe Burrow. I think they got a really good chance of improving through free agency and also just getting healthy.
Yeah, what's the move here, Geoff? Pearce is right. Bengals have historically just been like one of these cheap teams in the league. Yeah. But, man, they have a legitimate window to win it right now. You got to hop on this.
Yeah, I mean, look, expecting owners to do the right thing it'll often leave you trouble.
Yeah,
we've seen Green Bay. We've seen it in Green Bay, too. Oh, yeah, all they need to do is get a wide receiver. They'll do it this year. They'll do it this year.
10 years in Jacksonville.
It doesn't happen. What's that?
I was saying 10 years in Jacksonville. It's been happening.
Yeah. So I actually think that the Bengals fans, they may be a little disappointed with the results here. I think they will definitely address it in the draft. But the draft is a crapshoot. I mean, you can spend a high draft pick on an O-lineman. Doesn't mean he's going to be that good. Plenty of O-linemen have struggled early in their career. So, yeah, I mean, look, did the Bengals need to address it? Obviously, it should be a concern. But I'm not necessarily thinking that they go out and do it. I also would say, for them on the defensive side, they've got a very nice, core secondary. I think that adding a pass rusher should also be high on their list. If you're giving me the option of spending on O-line versus, adding an elite pass rusher, I might even add the pass rusher. Those guys make such a big difference. That defense is really solid. If you add, one sort of Aaron Donald-ish type guy, obviously not getting Aaron Donald, but someone similar to him in the middle, that would make a big difference. That would really turn that unit into an elite one, I think. So I think those are the 2 main units. Obviously, they've solidified their offensive future and their playmaking, which is a nice spot to be in, quite frankly. So
yeah, they got the number 31st pick in the draft this year, and then we all know that they went quarterback and wide receiver the past 2 years in the first round. Speaking of Aaron Donald here, Geoff, I mean, Rams are dealing with some retirement rumors. They might not even get Aaron Donald next year. Head coach Sean McVay is in that conversation, and now big beefy Aaron Donald. He didn't end up announcing anything after the game. Going to soak up all the fun, winning a championship. Did announce that he was going to Disneyland. But if he does ride off into the Southern California sunset here, what kind of shape will this Rams defense be in, Geoff?
So, I mean, first of all, I don't think Aaron Donald's going to retire. What else? What is he going to do? Outside of playing football, is he going to make those crazy workout videos where he's dodging people's
dude? He is so big,
and just sell them online or something. I mean, I would buy one, but
yeah, there you go.
The Rams they're a superstar driven team. They're the very definition of 4 players won the championship for them this year. It just feels like, I mean, name some Rams outside of Ramsey, Donald, Stafford, and Kupp. It's kind of hard to do once you go through their lineup. Losing Aaron Donald for this team would be an absolute devastating blow. And I don't think it's one that they would recover from next year either. I would definitely be fading them to make the playoffs. They're in a competitive division. That D-line and just, the plays that Aaron Donald was making for them at the end of games to make up for silly play calling by Sean McVay, who was running negative run plays every third play of the game. Yeah, they need that. They absolutely need Aaron Donald in there. So I think it would have a massive blow. And it's just a player you obviously can't replace. The Rams also have no draft picks to replace him with or collateral. So Aaron Donald retiring, That would just be a blow for the Rams, I think, for multiple years.
Pearce, it's crazy because he's like entering the mix in the conversation with guys like Reggie White, Lawrence Taylor, Bruce Smith as some of the best.
Hey, let's pump the brakes there.
No, I refuse to pump the brakes. And he's underpaid. So is this more about like leaking something to the media that I may retire at 30 because, listen, he is underpaid.
Is he really? Is he underpaid?
Yeah, he was underpaid coming into the season, and he's underpaid, entering the Super Bowl, and now he's underpaid heading into an off season.
Oh, well, he can lock out then. Who cares about that? If he plays or doesn't play.
The Rams care about it. The Rams don't want to lose him.
The Rams have got more problems than that. I mean, the Rams, congratulations on the Super Bowl run, but boy, did they have a soft schedule down the stretch. Boy, did they catch every single break that they needed to. Let's not forget that this team looked pretty ugly at times during the regular season. They were all over the place. They had some really bad losses. If you have one of those unfortunate games, one of those inconsistent games in the playoffs, you lose. You get eliminated. They were very lucky to have made it there. And you look at this division that they're in. When Arizona is healthy, Arizona is a better team. If Trey Lance can moderately improve during the offseason and just grow week by week next season, San Francisco is a better team as well. And you can never count out Seattle. It's not crazy to think that the Rams missed the playoffs altogether, even with Donald. Yes, they've got plenty of weapons, but as Geoff mentions, yeah, they've got these big names. But other than that, I mean, they don't have a run game. Andrew Whitworth is like 52 now, anchoring their offensive line. They've got plenty of issues. I think you're going to have one of those Super Bowl hangover performances where they just miss the playoffs altogether next season.
We talked about this. The Rams are the very definition of a team that pushed all their chips in the middle to get a Super Bowl.
Yep.
And you know what? I commend them for that because not enough teams do it. They cashed in. But yeah, it's time to pay the piper over the next few years for the Rams. And like, if this gets accelerated by a retirement or two, this team is going to be ugly in a couple years.
Yeah, we talked about it on the Wednesday edition of Slate with Reed T. Fowler last week, Geoff. Like the sustained success of the Rams likely not going to be as long as it will be for the Bengals, who ended up building through the draft and with a lot of young guys didn't spend all that cash. The Rams, though, guys, they did win this Super Bowl, the first in 22 years, despite that dreadful running game. 3 running backs combining for 30 yards on 19 carries. When we look ahead to next year here, Sony Michel will likely leave in free agency, while Darrell Henderson, Cam Akers, they have all offseason to get healthy. So where do you rank each of these backs like heading into next season, talking fantasy-wise here, Pearce?
Bad, worse, and worse?
Yeah.
In real life, they're not good. So in fantasy, unless these guys are absolute, bargains on a specific slate, I'm not going to be interested whatsoever in terms of fantasy. On a full slate, no one's going to roster Rams running backs. I mean, on a full slate, no one wants to roster Kansas City running backs. They're better. On a full slate, no one wants to roster Buffalo Bills running backs. We're talking about these guys because we've gotten used to these smaller slates and these showdown slates. Just rewind the clock back to the middle of the season. Cam Akers, Sony Michel, Henderson. No one cared about Rams running backs last year. We're not going to care about Rams running backs next year. They can even add like a third-round running back in the draft, and that's a late third-round running back. That would probably be an upgrade, but it's still going to be fantasy irrelevant. We could get a third-down running back that catches passes out of the backfield. No one's going to care. Maybe something changes. I don't see it. I think the Rams are going to be a completely write-off next season.
Dude, Daytona 500 week is bringing like the spiciest of spicy out of you, Pearce. I love this. I wish the Daytona 500 was every week. I mean, Geoff, you're a big NASCAR guy as well. Pearce is kind of onto something here. Like if one of these running backs was actually good and legit, they wouldn't be using a 3-headed monster in the backfield that could only manage 30 yards in the Super Bowl combined.
I'm more of like a pay less 300 guy, like that's my, but whatever. I mean, Daytona, sure, that's a big one. The Rams just winning the Super Bowl. My brain still hasn't figured it out. I mean, this team, they just couldn't run the ball. Like the running back position on this team is just so irrelevant right now, and I don't know how that's going to change in the offseason. There's a lot of people who say, "Oh, you shouldn't get on Cam Akers because he's coming off an Achilles injury." And like him getting on the field is cool. It's an accomplishment, but it's still an Achilles injury. Like he may never recover from that. He certainly didn't look like he was recovered this year. So 6 months, I mean, you give him a better shot. But the one back I have, look, Sony Michel is a write-off. He's gone. Like he's I'm sorry. Like he was there as like a place filler, a warm body. He's not coming back. The one guy I would have a little bit of interest in is Darrell Henderson Jr. He's the best pass catcher of the group. I've always thought he was better than Cam Akers anyways. It's just that Sean McVay loves Cam Akers. So if Cam Akers is coming in healthy next year, like Henderson isn't going to get the snaps. So this is all just a roundabout way of me saying this is pretty much just like the dead zone for fantasy next year. Maybe they'll add someone interesting in the draft, but Andrew Whitworth will probably be gone, and the Rams are probably going to be bad next year, if you ask me. So yeah, this is just not a spot you're going to have much interest in my opinion.
All right, let's wrap this segment up here with some Joe Burrow. Joe Cool should be a staple here for playoff football over the next decade, really. But it's also pretty clear that, he can't be elite if, he's going to continue to handle the punishment and beating by all these defenses. We talked about the offensive line earlier in this show. But, if they shore up that O-line, guys, where would you rank Joe Shiesty among fantasy quarterbacks heading into next season, Geoff?
So I think top 10 for sure. I don't think that you can put him necessarily in the top 5. I just think that's impossible. And look, there's a big line between real life and fantasy.
Yes.
I mean, Joe Burrow is probably, to me, like a lot better than a lot of the fantasy quarterbacks I have ranked in front of him. He's yards per attempt. He's great. He's shown better awareness. He's also going to be one more year removed from that knee injury. So don't be shocked if his rushing totals go up a little bit next year. But I think like 7th or 8th is completely fine for Joe Burrow. You can't put guys like Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, even a Justin Herbert behind Joe Burrow. Those guys are a little bit more dynamic with their rushing game. Herbert, to me, is involved in an offense where, they're just playing at a faster tempo. One thing we've seen from Zach Taylor, he's not afraid to go a little bit slower pace and dial down the number of pass attempts. So the Bengals will stick with the run. I don't think their offensive philosophy is going to change too much next year. Maybe they'll open it up more with more targets for Chase. That would make Burrow more interesting and maybe push him up the ranks a bit. But I think that, you've got to maintain a little bit of sensibility with Joe Burrow. Don't just go after him in fantasy because of the Super Bowl. You can like him. You can buy his jersey, whatever, but don't overpay for him because there's just too many quarterbacks that are probably going to be at better values who have a little bit more fantasy potential.
Yeah, Pearce, talking just fantasy here, like what do you see out of Joe Burrow in 2022 season?
He's definitely a top 5 talent, but fantasy-wise, he's barely top 10. You may even bump him back to top 15. It really has nothing to do with what he can do. It's what he's allowed to do. And the scheme in Cincinnati, and the scheme typically in these AFC North teams, is to play defense and run the ball. And when they get off that script, bad things happen. We saw what happened to the Ravens when they were forced to pass more. They lost their running backs. The season was a disaster. We've seen what's happened to Pittsburgh when they make Roethlisberger pass 50 times a game. It doesn't work out very well, and we know that Taylor and Cincinnati prefer to run the ball. They want to establish the run, play decent defense, and then allow Burrow to pass when he needs to. If you're having trouble protecting him, then guess what? You probably don't want him dropping back 50 times. You want to protect him. So fewer pass attempts limits his opportunities. Yeah, he had some big monster games this year, throwing for over 400 yards, but that was also against a Ravens secondary that had a bunch of issues, against a Kansas City team that just didn't show up on a specific day. He'll have those monster games from week to week, but if we're looking at the end of the season, he's not going to have the most passing yards. He's not going to throw for the most touchdowns. He may have the most wins, but fantasy-wise, it's going to be a specific week-by-week basis for him.